Welcome back to Anything You Want, where we sift through the clamor and deliver the human heart beneath the headlines. If you value the kind of reporting that preserves dignity and seeks truth over spectacle, please subscribe, like this video, and consider supporting us by clicking the join button. Your support keeps this space free from the chase for clicks mentality and allows us to tell stories with care. There are mornings that pretend to be ordinary and mornings that change the shape of someone's life before the first headline appears. The dawn in question arrived like that second kind of morning, unadvertised, unlit by press flares, and stubbornly private. For Alp Navras, an actor whose professional posture often reads as steely composure, that sunrise fractured a choreography he had long learned to perform. It did not arrive with an advance copy of lines or stage directions. It arrived as an intimate, disorienting blow, a family emergency that dismantled the routine arrangements of the day and left him, for a rare stretch, bereft of performance. What followed, according to those with knowledge of the interior moments, was an act of attention so simple that it skirted spectacle. Alina Boz came. Not to pose. Not to explain. Not to manufacture a narrative. She arrived quietly, with no PR entourage, no prearranged photo op, and no intention of turning pain into content. She came instead with a presence that prioritized shelter over show, intimacy over image, and in doing so, offered a lesson about what it means to stand with someone when the world expects you to perform grief. To describe her entrance is to describe the absence of everything we usually expect in a public person crisis. She did not enter as a character crafted for public consumption. Observers emphasize that she chose comfort over costume, clothing that suggested she intended to remain, a face set with concentrated concern rather than practiced expression, and movements that betrayed neither alarm nor artifice. Those small decisions, the quiet car, the lack of camera-ready polish, held meaning. They signaled a refusal to convert a private rupture into a public episode. Behind the closed door, eyewitnesses say, words were sparse. The moment did not call for statements nor for analysis, it called for proximity. There was, by multiple accounts, an embrace that stretched long enough to delineate the difference between an apology and a refuge. They did not trade lines, they traded steadiness. The gesture was unadorned and therefore more consequential than any crafted declaration could have been. Over the course of the day, Alina did not merely remain physically close, she entered the practical orbit of a person in crisis. Where paperwork, logistics, and the cold machinery of institutional responses threatened to calcify an already raw situation, she moved through the necessary motions with an almost invisible efficiency, absorbing details that would otherwise have become additional burdens for Alp. To those who have watched both of them over time, this comportment was familiar. Alp, methodical and contained, Alina, perceptive and purposeful. But in the intimacy of that morning, the familiar took on sacramental weight. Her presence became a kind of buffer, a human bulwark against the hungry curiosity of the outside world. By evening, they stepped out into the city, not to be seen, but to breathe. The walk itself was unhurried, almost mundane, two figures moving through familiar streets, shoulders close enough to register mutual support but not posed for image-making. Yet it was precisely the ordinariness of the walk that registered as extraordinary to onlookers. In an era when public gestures often resolve into viral moments, the banal act of walking together without announcing it assumed an almost heroic quality, a privacy preserved in the face of a world that trades privacy for impressions. Public reaction, predictably, followed familiar channels. Images circulated. Theories formed. Social media alchemized a handful of sightings into full-blown narratives. Some commentators framed the day as the opening chapter of a renewed romance. Others framed it as a demonstration of peerless solidarity, a testament to human fidelity that seeks no headline. Industry colleagues responded with muted signals, a monochrome photograph here, a few elliptical lines of support there. Importantly, neither Alp nor Alina produced a statement. That deliberate silence became itself a statement, an ethical choice to let the event exist without being refitted to the public appetite. When a photographer attempted to cross the boundary into the private space, he was stopped by a relative who said, simply and sternly, "Not now." Those two words, short and absolute, created a protective perimeter that the media sometimes respects and sometimes violates. In this case, the perimeter held, at least enough to keep the most intimate details out of the public record. Even so, fragments leaked, and rumor took the forms it always takes: selective memory, recontextualized interviews, reconstructed timelines. Fans, determined and devotional, worked to reconstruct a narrative from these shards, past on-set anecdotes, shared schedules, and old comments that now glowed with new implications. But if the public cultivated explanation, the private participants pursued containment. This disparity between external thirst for meaning and internal desire for containment is instructive. For Alp and for Alina, the day was not a chapter to be narrated for mass consumption. It was an episode to be held among the few who knew how to tend it. There is, in the aftermath, a quality that is worth isolating: restraint. Outside, the machinery of fandom and commentary bristled and spun. Inside, there was measured care. The two existences, the public and the private, do not always reconcile, but on that morning they coexisted as best they could, with one side asking for silence and the other, for a time, honoring it. If there is any lesson in this, it is plain but profound. To show up for someone in crisis is an ethical act that often resists elevation into spectacle. Care is not necessarily romantic. It is, occasionally, the simple bearing of another's burden without seeking recompense in the form of social capital. At night, as the city exhaled, the moments of the day receded into memory. A car door closed without fanfare. People parted not with thunderous declarations but with small private assurances that required no audiences. For many onlookers, the absence of a final act, an explicit reconciliation or a contractually produced statement, proved maddening. For others, it proved faithful, proof that not all events must be converted into narratives for public digestion. We'll close with this. In a time when the first impulse is to film, to publish, to monetize, there remains, stubbornly and beautifully, the possibility of an unadvertised kindness. Whether or not this day marks a renewal of something more than a friendship is a question that time will answer or refuse to answer. The immediate truth, however, is unambiguous. When a sudden fracture occurred in one man's life, another person arrived not as a camera-ready accessory but as a sheltering presence. That choice, to prioritize compassion over commentary, is the story that deserves the keeping. If this kind of reporting matters to you, if you want more pieces that resist sensationalism and honor human dignity, please subscribe to Anything You Want, like the video, and share your thoughts below. Don't forget to click the join button if you'd like to support our channel and help us continue digging for the quiet truths behind the headlines. Thank you for being part of a community that values restraint, respect, and real human connection. Until next time, keep questioning, keep caring, and remember that sometimes the most meaningful stories are the ones we never meant to publicize.